Good evening, one and all. So we have a very welcome Canine show again. It's been a bit of a hiatus before we started. It's been some time since we had a session. So we are very glad to have Mr. Barrie Drewitt-Barlow of the world famous Python Poodles to join us today from Tampa, Florida, and USA. So the Python Poodle is one of the biggest poodle kennels in the world as such, and they have produced over 150 champions over the years. And in the last 2 years, they are the kennel which has the most number of Western Show wins world over. And in the recent past, they have had Joanne, their dog, who has won the Sydney Royal Easter Show, Western Show. And their dog Nando is doing extremely well in all of Europe. I am very sure Barrie is brimming with pride. So welcome Barrie to the show. And Barrie also had other breeds like Dachshund breeds, Dalmatians, and Maltese earlier. And I think they also have Pekingese now, and even an odd Afghan hound. So, how do you feel to be part of the Madras Canine Club session today, Barrie?
Hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel really privileged and honored to be here, so thank you so much.
We share the feeling is mutual. We share very happy about having invited you to do a session on poodles. So let's get started on the day then.
Wonderful.
So we'll have the first question up. So what is the history and origin of the poodle breed?
You know, it's really weird because everybody in in Europe always say the French poodle had to be from France originally. Everybody kind of puts the poodle with the French, but I think in fact the poodle actually was established and started in Germany. And so the misconception is that it was probably in France, and I think most French breeders would probably still argue that the origins are indeed French, but I think over the years, I think popular belief now is that it actually started in Germany.
Well, I think I also came up with this piece of information in our dog's publication. They were talking about how the poodles have actually originated in Germany. So that is amusing, but why is that the French are very strong in the dog that's originated from their country?
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. You're a bit muffled.
I'm asking, why do you feel that the French feel that the poodle is actually a breed that's originated from their country when actually the roots are in Germany?
Well, I'm British, so don't get me started on the French, but the truth of the matter is I think the French think everything originates with them. But I think over the years, geneticists have looked at different DNA samples, and I think it's a well-proven fact now that poodles did originally come from Germany.
Okay, wonderful. We'll go to the next one. Sid, can we have the next question? So what are the functions that the poodles were originally developed for?
Well, they were originally bred as retrieving dogs. So they were first bred to go after the birds that the hunters would shoot down. So they were more of a retriever. And quite typically, they would be going after waterfowl, the hunters, and they would shoot their prey down, and the dog would be sent to retrieve anything that the hunter had killed. So, that was what they were originally bred for, as a hunter's companion and the retriever of any game that had been shot during the hunt.
So is that the reason why the name poodles came up? Because it's got to do with the German word Poodlen, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it was because that they were specifically bred to actually get in water and retrieve those birds that the actual name was founded.
Okay, wonderful, great. Okay, can we have the next question, sir? Okay, which are the three sizes of the poodles are the first to have originated? How are the other two developed?
For the three sizes, you mean?
Yes. So which one originated first? We have the standard, we have the miniature, we have the toy. So which ones originated first according to history and
Well, the standard was the very first, and the hunter wanted something that he could take out, and not only just to retrieve the kill, but it was also to help protect against anything else that might have been out in the woods at the time. But there's I think depending on what part of the world you're actually in, there's actually four sizes. Europe recognises and the FCI recognises a fourth size, which in Europe they call dwarf. So they have the standard, the miniature, and the dwarf, and the toy. So in fact, there's actually four sizes. In America, we don't have those four sizes. In the UK, we don't have those four sizes. I'm not sure what it's like in India if you recognise 3 or 4, but under FCI rules, there is a fourth size too. The smaller sizes came because of in the early 20th century, circuses became really popular, and poodles are one of the most intelligent breeds of dogs that there actually is. And you can literally train a poodle to do almost anything. It can sit, it can move a paper, it can retrieve, it can count. You can teach it to do lots of different things, and so they became almost like a party piece. And circuses, especially during wartime, when animals that they would normally have were becoming more difficult to get hold of, they had to come up with different ideas to still attract people to the big tent. And so poodles were trained and shown to do different things, from walking a tightrope, and swimming and all sorts of different things for an audience. And so they wanted to breed them down in size to do much more things. Stand on the back of an elephant, or stand facing a big lion, but you're getting a dog that looks like a lion in lion trim, only this kind of size. So it was mainly the circus people that tried to breed the size down to actually utilize the breed in different ways for their acts.
okay. Interesting. That is amusing to know how the toy poodle came into perspective. We have a audience question. There is Mr. Sudipta Shankar Bahaduri, who had mentioned poodles are very intelligent breed and seems to have very good nose, but we don't see them used for scent work by police or airport security. Is it because of the coat?
Actually, that is a really good question, but actually they are used for different things. They're super intelligent, and and again in Europe, the police do use them in different countries in Europe. Different drug squads around the world actually do use poodles, not only just for drugs, but for sniffing out bombs and things like that. Airport securities have started using them more. They don't look as ferocious, so people are not scared by them, but they still do a super job in being able to sniff things out. So they definitely are used. A lot of people are using them now for support animals. You see a lot of them now traveling as companions on planes and other public transports and things. Therapy dogs, we see a lot of them. I work in a lot of hospitals. I'm a clinical scientist for a research company, but we see a lot of them now at patients' bedsides. They're a great source of comfort for people who are at end of life. So they're used a lot more now, and seem to be one of the most popular breeds to bring into the hospitals.
Okay, that's interesting. Because as Sudipta had mentioned, we have never seen much of poodles engaged in sniffing work or maybe in other departments of using the nose. But it is interesting to know that they are used. And are they used for even cancer detection? There is one new concept of dog being developed to sense cancer from patients. Are they used for it? Would you have heard about poodles being used for such a purpose?
You know, that's a really interesting concept because I actually work in that kind of field. That's my day job. And I work in clinical research. And part of the clinical research I do is working with drug companies to run their clinical trials on new formulations that they're producing. And, you know, it's been suggested a couple of times now that there are assessment units in Europe that are using dogs to detect early signs of cancer. So, you know, I think if it can be proven it works substantially, I think a lot more institutions would be more willing to use it. And I think it's just such a new concept right now that, you know, it's not being pushed. But I think it's important to try. You know, it might be a great mechanism to get early signs of an illness that we can treat sooner. So I'm all for it.
Hi, Barrie. Okay, I'm going to take over for like 5-10 minutes because Jay seems to be having a technical issue. A lot of people can't hear him properly, so I'm just going to reboot the system. So till then, I'll be the host. I'll play the host. Okay, perfect. Nice. Nice to know that you work in clinical trials, and this is part of the. This is one thing is part of your closely related or closely associated with you as well. That's good to know. We'll move on to the next question that we have. Is there a specific reason that 3 sizes is in the same breed? I'm presuming this is a very unique feature in Poodle breed.
I think just going back to one of the previous questions, you know, I think the main reason why we kind of ended up with these different sizes in Poodle is because of the circus people that were breeding them down originally to have these dogs for show within the big tent. And so it kind of formed like that. They weren't specifically bred in these 3 sizes or 4 sizes to, you know, to go for the hunt or anything. You know, I think the original aim was to have these big dogs that could run fast, have a lot of stamina and be there to retrieve those. You know, people look at poodles, I think, and because they look all puffy and, you know, they're all well groomed and they're so stylish and they're, you know, they have such ring presence when they're all done up and they look so wimpy. That's the thing, but they're actually not. They are ferocious and they are tremendously welcoming and adaptable animals that they can literally turn their hand to anything. These dogs can go for hours, you know. The toy ones, not so much, you know. I only have to walk down to the gate of my house with the pack of toys that I've got, and I'm literally carrying them in bundles back to the house later on because they just can't make the trip back to the front door. But the standards can go for hours, you know. They need such exercise. They're big dogs. They want to be with people all the time, you know. Poodles are like that anyway. I think the way they've been bred over the years, they're companion dogs. They love the interaction with other people. And I think you can see when you watch dogs in the ring, the connection that they have with the handlers.
Yeah.
You know, it's really weird because you can almost tell from the placements in a lot of the lineups what connection the handler has with the dog, because you can almost see the dog that's just been handed to a handler for the first time going in the ring because there's no connection. You know, there's almost that standoffishness between a poodle and a stranger going into the ring, whereas with a true professional, if somebody who's had that dog for a while under their wings, you can see the bond and the connection. You know, poodles want to jump, they want to laugh, they want to jump up you, and they want to show off. And with the right handler in the right ring, the right time, they are the king of the ring. And that's why you see so many poodles winning best in show all the time. I almost feel sorry for those terrier breeds because some of those terriers are absolutely beautiful. But the problem is when they're in the ring with a poodle that's been made up with hair this long and the top knot looks amazing and it's been sprayed up and it's walking in all proud, that terrier doesn't stand a cat in hell's chance of winning anything. It's just terrible.
That's true. I mean, a well-groomed poodle, a well-groomed Afghan, they just take the ring. I mean, they occupy the ring, and your eyes is finally set on them at the end of the day. Like, because any of these two breeds is well groomed and shown well. As you said, the connection with the handler matters a lot when it comes to showing any breed. And these two breeds I specifically have seen in the ring, they just occupy the rings elegantly and so well compared to other breeds as such.
What's the kind of pickup for poodles in India? Do you guys have? Is it a popular breed in India, or is it
It
just
it
becoming?
is. I wouldn't say it is a widely popular breed, yes, but we have had breeders who have had a couple of really good dogs in India, standard as well as toy poodles. There was a toy poodle long time back which did a lot of winning, and we had a standard poodle which did a lot of winning as well. But it's a breed that you don't see every year in the show rings in India. If somebody, like, in a sense, the last time we saw a nice poodle was like 4 years back, 4 5 years back, which was brought here to India and shown it won really well. But then after that, we haven't seen a poodle as such, a good one, at least. Not and I don't think the people also who had the dog here bred it for its progenies to be shown in India. But yes, we have seen it, but it's not a very popular breed. But yeah, we have off and on seen the breed making an appearance in the Indian shows.
That's so good. What's your most popular breed there then?
See, here there's a lot of I mean, any working dog, German Shepherds,
The working.
the Group One, the Group Two dogs, like the Dobermans, the Rottweilers, the Great Danes, the Mastiffs, those, the Labs. We have a good number of Labs, Goldens, Beagles. We have a good population of Beagles. Yeah,
So
these are the major. These makes up the major chunk of the breeds.
is everything without a coat by the sounds of it?
Yeah, see, the ones with the coat, I mean, like, unfortunately, the climate doesn't suit in India for to have a heavy coated breed like an Afghan or a poodle. To maintain that, it's a cumbersome work. I mean, like, yeah, you should be spending a lot of time with the dogs, grooming them and trimming them and keeping them in show ready condition. That is something that we lack a little. One. Second is the climate doesn't isn't very conducive to having a heavily coated breed. As such, you see, only an air conditioned place can only do so much. You can't keep a dog in an you can see a difference of the dog kept inside an AC room throughout its life than to kept outside in a natural environment where it is cool, right? So you will know the difference. So that is there always. But yeah, here generally the this thing as such, like, in a sense, people are more towards the working breeds, more towards the less coated breeds. But there are a lot of that. But that doesn't mean to say that there are not any coated breeds as such. Yes, we do have a lot of Afghans. We do have a lot of Siberian Huskies. But it all depends on the place where you live, which part of India you live in. The south, where I live, like, where it's almost like we do not have anything called a winter. We have a rainy season, which is at the end of December, like October, November, December. But predominantly, it is clear blue skies and sunny outside and hot.
Nice. And when do you normally have your shows then? Is there a specific time in the year to do that?
We have a show season somewhere between our season starts somewhere between August, September. That is when the climate changes to a little bit of a cooler climate in almost all places in India. So we start somewhere between after September. So, like, during September we start and it goes up till February, end of March.
Right.
Because from April again, summer starts for us.
Right. So when would you say was a good time for foreigners to come? If we wanted to finish one of our dogs in, say,
this is a bracket. So, see, this is a bracket where we have shows across India as well. This time frame that I told you between September and March is where predominantly all the shows that happen in India. There would be sporadic shows that happen in other months as well, but nothing major. You wouldn't have like a show every weekend after March or April or anything like that. Between April and June, July, you would have maximum one show, and that might be an indoor show that is conducted, or one or two shows, but it will be spread across. It won't be between weekends.
Wow, that's so good. And what would you say was your typical number for a dog show there?
Depends on the club, depends on the show that we have. An FCI show attracts a lot of because the FCI show is the only show that happens over the weekend. So we do any club that hosts an FCI show in that particular year would attract a good number of entries, like say around 500 to 600 dogs in that particular day, and it all depends on the accessibility again, people going there and everything. So I mean, an FCI show on a larger scale would easily get a show of an entry of around 600. A non-FCI show or a pointed show, that's what we call in India for this thing, would attract somewhere around 300, 350 dogs. And if they have any club has a specialty shows along with that, that entail brings in a lot other entries as well.
That's incredible. And in terms of, I tell you what, I feel like I'm interviewing you, but
Yeah.
is there such a thing as the Madras Poodle Club? Do you have poodle clubs there?
No, we don't have a specific poodle club.
No
such.
breed clubs?
No, not at the moment. The number of poodles are very limited, so we do not have I mean, see, a poodle club can be started, but there wouldn't be a subsequent number of dogs to be shown in a specialty show if there was any. Right. So when you have the numbers, yes, people would love to start a club, but as of now, we do not have any specialty club for poodle.
Okay, so my new aim is to make sure that Madras ends up with its own specific breed club. So I'm going to make it my mission.
In India, this would be India. This would be an India thing. Yes, India would love to have a poodle club, and India would love to see a lot more poodle in the ring than just one or two that we see very, very rarely as such.
Okay, so that's my mission. I'm going to make sure that I find enough people who want a poodle, and I'm going to make sure they get over to India.
Yeah, that'll be great. That'll be great. Okay, our original host for the day is back on. And I will take a back seat, and he can continue from here.
It is a joy to hear you speak, Barrie. As you said, you are interviewing Siddharth. It was good to hear all the questions that are coming up, and also talking about the Poodle Club. It will be a great achievement if you're able to do that.
Okay, leave it with me. I'm going to work on it.
I'll be able to help you out in whatever ways I can.
But seriously though, I mean, poodles are a great dog to have, and they're a great breed. And I think, your country would really benefit from seeing so many more, good quality dogs in the ring. So, we have a Facebook page. It's called Poodle World. There are people on it from all over the world. If any of your listeners want to find us on Facebook, especially people in India, that you can meet other breeders. There's lots of breeders from around the world on there that breed some amazing dogs. And it would be nice to see some of them over there with you guys.
I think, as Siddharth had told, the concern would be is about grooming. Grooming as a profession, grooming as a passion has never been, at least in the last, if not for the last 5 years, it has not been of much of prominence in the Indian dog sport as such. But in the last 5 years, we have been able to see a lot of people bringing in total breeds. Shih Tzus are doing well. There are a couple of breeders who have brought in Bichon breeds. They are doing well. There's even a few of them who have brought in Maltese. As Siddharth said, there are some poodles which have come and gone. I think that looking as a specific art form, or I think of the sport is picking up. So I think in the future, we certainly have more poodles and more of the poodles coming in.
Have you ever been over to the US or the UK to see any of the shows there?
Not me, but I think Siddharth had been to the Crufts.
The Crufts.
Once or twice he had been there to the Crufts, and he has also been to the Thailand's biggest show. So unfortunately, I have not been fortunate enough to travel over and see these shows.
Well, I'm sure you will one day. But I think the point I was trying to make was, you see the different grooming there, and it really has become an art now. It's a real art form. I mean, if you go to any of the shows in the US, there is a conga line of products and people and, hundreds of these groomers with their 3 or 4 assistants. It's a huge production to get those dogs in the ring. If you just see, if you go to one of them, we have the Poodle Club of America every year, the Poodle Speciality here, which is, it's the pinnacle of our breeds, showing years. So it's the one where everybody wants to go, and people come from all over the world again to see the wonderful dogs there. But people come specifically to see the grooming as well. You know, they want to watch these world-class groomers grooming the dogs. And, you know, I can understand that it's very difficult in places like India, where it's been predominantly German Shepherds and those kind of short-haired coats, but eventually you will find that it's gonna evolve, and you've got these guys bringing over the Shih Tzus and the Bichons now to India, and you know they've got to learn how to groom them, and I'm sure they are doing. But you know, to win consistently with a poodle, you've got to have that dog looking incredible. You know, it's really weird because over the last 4 weeks, we've had 6 or 7 best in shows with 4 or 5 different standard poodles in 5 or 6 or 7 different countries, you know. And I think, again, the pinnacle for us in the last couple of weeks was the Sydney Royal. You know, we won best in show there with a standard poodle that we sent to Rebecca and Blake Wistable over in Sydney. And they did such an amazing job. But, you know, 50% of the work was in the grooming. It's incredible skill that these people have to get it ready and be show worthy like it was. You know what it's like in these big shows where there's 6,000 dogs entered. You know, you've got to get through your own breed and then the group, and then you get into the best in show, and you know, you're going up for that final thing. If your dog and the handler have to be in sync completely, but also they have to look immaculate. And that's what I think people are going to struggle with anywhere in the world to win big shows if you haven't got a handle on the grooming.
Very true, very true. We will actually put up the question on the grooming. Okay, there is a question from the viewer. There is one, Mr. Arun Tapi, who is asking, since Poodle is a hairy breed that needs heavy grooming and hair removal during shows, is there any standard for grooming them?
Yeah, again, there is actually. Each kennel club will have their own standard on what they expect to see in the ring. I think over recent years here in the US, for example, well, you know, I started showing in the UK. That's where I grew up, and then I moved to the US as I got older. And even between just the US and the UK, the grooming is completely different. Although I will say the grooming in the UK has got a little bit more Americanized within the bigger poodle kennels there. And the ones that are certainly doing well have taken on a lot of the look and appearance of the US standard in terms of grooming and scissor work. But each independent kennel club has, you know, as their rule on how it should look when it goes into the ring. You know, in the UK, it seems like you can show an adult in a puppy trim all the way through and still win CCs and finish the dog. Whereas in the US, once it hits, you know, like a 12-month age limit, then it's out and it's cut into continental. So, you know, again, it just depends on the kennel club. I really like the puppy cut. I love the way it looks. It looks very sleek and it's very precise. And I like the angles and all of that kind of stuff. But there's nothing better than a standard poodle, I think, that's been cut out into continental trim. Because of the COVID restrictions and things and people keeping dogs at home, I know a lot of breeders have turned to the modified continental cut, which is, again, the same trim. It's the continental, but they've taken the hair right down. So it's only, say, this much instead of this much hair, you know, around the rest of the body. So I'm not a lover of that look. It just doesn't appeal to me at all. But lots of people are really liking that look now.
When talking about the styles of grooming, there is one question from our end which talks about what are the different styles of cuts or in the poodle breed as such. You are talking about the continental style, then you talk about the lion cut, the puppy cut as such. So what are the different styles of it?
Actually, my all-time favorite cut is the very old-fashioned, like 1920s breakfast at Tiffany kind of look, where the poodle looks all kind of like bolero style, and it's just got the hair on the legs, and it's all cut with a shaven Mohican down the middle. But there's the continental, there's the there's like 20,000 different pet trims that you could have, but I think the main one for shows is the Continental and the very classic puppy trim, short at the back, longer on the top, keep the ears long, muzzle's always cut short, and the toes and the tail's always clipped at the base.
Now, again, going back to the question of history, what is the history behind the grooming of the poodle, and especially the continental cut? It gives a very distinct look to the dog. So, where did that historically originate, this kind of a cut of the poodle?
Well, the original cuts were actually done because of the hunting sport, and they wanted to specifically breed a dog that would be able to hit ice cold water to retrieve a shot duck or a bird or a pheasant that had fallen into the water and still be able to make it out alive. So the aim was to build create a dog that had hair that would, one, help it as a floating device in the water, but also keep certain parts of the body warm when it actually hit the very, very cold water. And Germany's not known for being a tropical climate, and the rest of Europe isn't the same as well, but so the cuts were actually designed to help the dog while it was out working, really. But in terms of show cuts and things, again, they've just developed over the years. I think as tools have become more easily accessible and affordable to people, and I think companies have realized that they can sell a shampoo for $100 and a conditioner for $100 in the US, and people pay it, so there's money there for these companies to develop new products that help, grow coat, keep it mat free, and, keep it frizzless and all the rest of it, So I think as we've developed as showmen, the coat's developed as well, because, everybody who goes into the show ring spends 4 to 5 hours making that dog look amazing before it actually hits the ring. It's crazy. I think we're all crazy, honestly. I think we should shave the whole lot of them off and just go in with a pet trim. It'd be a lot more easier, and we'd be able to see really what was going on underneath the coat, because there are not so good dogs that win because of excellent grooming as well. So a judge really has the work cut out when they're judging a poodle, because there's a lot you can hide with a poodle because of the amount of coat it carries, and with a very talented groomer, and there are a lot of those around right now, it's easy to disguise faults.
Okay, we have a audience question on grooming again, I think. We'll ask it. Okay, there is Mr. Varun Kumar asking, hi sir, can you please describe the banding process and frequency to remove the bands and brushing them? Is there any specific techniques to follow in the poodles?
Yeah, there is actually. And, if you go on to YouTube, there's lots of different groomers that actually show you in detail exactly how to get the best banding techniques. With any breed, an Afghan or a poodle, where we're literally growing a top knot that is literally, it's huge. It's so, it's a foot long in some cases. And, I can understand a lot of handlers now, they won't cope with that amount of hair when they've got 6 to 10 standards. It's a lot of work to do, so they kind of tend to keep the specials, or those that they're thinking of specialing, in the longer hair, because they want as much natural. But to be honest with you, a lot of dogs in the show ring now have a lot of wigs on them, so people are using hair from another dog into the dogs that are going into the show ring, because they can weave them into the top knot and it can make it look fuller. So at home they can keep the top knot really short and the neck hair really short, and when they go out to the dog shows, they weave in these these wigs. That's another method to do it. In terms of banding, I think the aim is to keep the dog, we want to grow the hair, and it does actually encourage the hair to grow when we tie it back. But also, we want to keep it free of any debris. We don't want it to be chewed by the dog. We don't want it to be chewed by any of its playmates and all of that kind of stuff as well. So we keep it out of the eyes. We band them all the way back, and then we tie it all into one ball at the end. The same with the ears. There are specific techniques. I can't say one's any better than the other, but I would suggest going on YouTube and watching a couple of the tutorials. That's the easiest thing to do.
Okay. So this leads to another question. Before taking up what Sidhu is putting up here, you're talking about how judges can get carried away and not be able to judge if they are not knowledgeable in terms of understanding the breed well. How the presentation and the court and everything can sway the decision. So what, according to you, is a good poodle judge? How does he or she delivers what is expected out of her beyond the court? And you are even talking about hair being weaved into the top knot. So how does a very good judge really do his job well?
It's really difficult. I don't think one person knows everything. I've never been a believer in that. And I know we have some very good all-round judges that, can go from, one group to another group to another group to another group. But I just find it impossible for one person to know every single thing about every single breed of dog, and I just don't believe that person exists that can go from one breed to another 20 different breeds. So I like all breed judges. I think they're amazing, because they bred the breed they're looking at. They've had them around them for years, and they've won with them. They've bred them. They know what they're looking for. We all have our little idiosyncrasies that I might prefer a head. A dog with a better head. I might prefer the rear. I might like the tail set. The front, whatever. Don't get me wrong though. There are some very good all-round judges. You had a really good all-round judge on your show a few months ago, Patricia from Argentina. She's one of my favorite all-round judges, and she's one of those very unique people that can spot what's going on under a coat, not just with her eyes, but she's a very hands-on type of person, and you can tell when you see them in the ring, they're not afraid to put their hands on a dog, and I think when you get on to the dog, you can feel the structure, and as long as you have a good understanding of what the structure should be, then I think you know the dog. The one thing about Patricia, it's a funny story actually, because the dog that won at the Sydney Royal was won in a litter of 8, and 7 of those puppies actually went on to be champions for their owners, and some of them did super well. At least 3 or 4 of them, actually one of them's over with Lotta at the Huffish Kennels at the moment. One of them, Samantha's been winning consistently best in shows throughout Europe. Sydney's now a US and a Swedish champion. And then we had Juan, and Juan's the one that's in Australia who won the Sydney Royal. But Juan was that kind of dog that was just nothing different in the litter, and everybody that came to pick their dogs that went on to do great things all went by Juan. But I looked at Juan in the litter and I thought, out of all of them, this is the dog that I actually really, really like. But everybody, all my breeder friends, everybody who came to look at the litter were like, no, put him in a pet home. And then Patricia actually came for dinner one evening, and I showed her this litter and I went, Patricia, be really brutally honest with me. Tell me, what do you think about this litter? And she went, okay. So I let them all come running out of the pen, and they all came running in. And the first one she saw was Juan, and she went, that's the one that I really like. And I went, but that's the one everybody else hates. Oh my God. He's like, he's falling all over the place. He can't stand up on his feet properly. He's like the pudding of the whole group, banging into all the furniture. And she went, no, Barry, look, the head's great. And I went, I know, Patricia, that's my favorite one, but everyone's telling me this one, and this one. she said, okay, well, you know what? Why don't you just keep him anyway and run him on? And I went, do you know what? I'm going to do that. And I did. I kept him. We got him out. He finished quite quickly with Sharon's Fabosa. He got his first major, and then he went to Chris and Rachel over at the Tarquin Kennels, and they finished him really quickly then for his second major and got the last points. And then he just came back to the house, and we just sat looking at him for a few months. And then my friend in Australia who breeds poodles said, you know, we met at PCA, and you know, it's like the calendar event of the year, and she went, oh my god, he's actually really nice. And I'm like, but nobody likes him, you know, he's like a pudding. He walks into the walls, and he just looks so thick all the time, and everyone's like, no, you know, you've made him up now, send him home, send him to somebody as a really nice pet. I can't do that. So I found this girl that somebody had told me about in Australia, and I contacted her and I said, do you know what? Somebody's told me that you're a fantastic handler and that you're ready to have a poodle of your own. I've got something that I would really like to send to you. And she's like, okay, thinking this strange old man in, you know, America's contacted me out of nowhere offering me this dog. So anyway, we got talking. I ended up sending her this dog. His first 4 shows he went out, he won Best in Show. Then his 5th show, he went to the Sydney Royal. And I remember getting a message the day before from Rebecca saying, I'm so nervous. Everybody's got these high expectations because, you know, he's been out and he's won Best in Show at these 4 shows. And, you know, I'm really nervous. I'm like, Rebecca, it's fine. You don't need to prove anything to anybody now. He's had his 4 Best in Shows. If he never gets another one, it doesn't matter. He's a Best in Show winner. He's a multi-champion. Let him go and just enjoy it. Just have a wonderful time now. Mix with your friends, show him off a little bit. And then the following day, I wake up and she's like, oh my God, we've only got a one. And then they have to wait until another day to go for Best in Show. So there was like a 3 or 4 day wait. So 3 or 4 days we had of Rebecca sending us messages saying, oh my God, I'm so nervous. All these really good dogs, these top dogs from all over Sydney, all over Australia are going to be there. And then the following day, she, you know, it was the big day, and I completely forgot all about it, went to bed again. And then the next day, my whole social media had blown up with all these people sending congratulations from everywhere in the world about this stupid dog that nobody liked who suddenly won the Sydney Royal. It's crazy. So I don't know. Sorry, I do ramble a little bit.
I think that all great dogs have such beautiful stories to come up with. I always heard such kind of stories with dogs which came up from nowhere, and always the underdog winning has become it's always a big way of memory to keep up with. And I was wishing Rebecca all the best on the eve of Sydney Royal.
I should have called that dog Slumdog Millionaire. That's what I should have called it. Yes.
So this is we are talking about Patricia Nemrisco. We have a special question from her. Yesterday when I shared the poster with her, she said I would be judging then when the session is online. So she had asked me to put this question across to you. She said, and I wanted to convey warm regards to you also. What's that thing that makes a great difference between an excellent poodle and a super poodle? Carriage, expression, or attitude? This is especially from Patricia.
Well, thank you, Patricia. You know, it's really, I don't know. I think you either have an eye for it or you don't. And, you know, you can kind of tell after so many litters, you know, what you're kind of looking for at an early stage, because unless you run those dogs on until they're all 6 or 7 and 8 months old, you don't really get, you know, because it's easy to make a mistake as well. You know, the dogs can come running out of the pen, you know, at like 12 weeks old, and you can have a group of your friends there all looking and picking out what they specifically like within the breed themselves, you know, and we all have those little different things that we like and pick up on. So I like I like to look for carriage. That's one of my main things. I like to see a poodle that's got its head up. You know, they're not lurchers, they're not hounds. I don't like it when you see them and they're kind of out this way. You know, that's not the right type of look for a poodle for me. I love attitude, you know, and I always remember I had one of my first best winning standards from a kennel in Spain called Del Zazo, and the owners there were Carlos Renau and Juan Cabrera, and the two of them, they used to breed the most amazing standard poodles, and the one that I had from them was called Del Zazo Rubio con Gancho. And that means with attitude, and that's the whole point of a poodle. It has to have that attitude. We had a fantastic poodle, not bred by Piedmont, but by another breeder here in the US that recently won at Westminster, and that dog had everything. It had the carriage, it had the expression, it had the attitude, but a lot of that as well is helped by the person going in the ring with the dog. I think the dog can have all of those things, but with the wrong person they don't come through, or they don't shine as much as they can do. So for me, and I also think as well, you should always take advice from people. We've had poodles for over 30 years, but I'd rather have someone like Patricia come in and have a look at a litter just to see what she likes. Or I love working with Chris and Rachel, because they're the most to the point people I'd ever met. I'll bring something out and I'll go, "Oh my God, Rachel, look at this, it's amazing." And she'll look at it and go, "For the love of God, Barry, it's awful." Cut it off and send it to a pet owner. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so deflated by the end of it. But I appreciate that kind of comment, even after 30 years of being in the breed. I want to still take people's advice, because, I think it's important, especially with your breed, that you're working to better it, and not just to, not just to get your own whims across. I like a really good head and a good front, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't be looking at the rear angulation and the rest of the poodle, and unfortunately some breeders get very kennel blind and have a specific one thing they breed to all the time, and that's not the right thing to do. I think one of the other things that makes an excellent poodle is going outside your own initial gene pool, going to other good breeders and using their things. If they've got a good stud dog and you've got a bitch, and you might have a good stud dog at home, but there's something about the other person's stud dog that's going to better your next litter, then go outside and get somebody else, use somebody else's stud dog. That's the best bit of advice I could give to anybody. You can see the sire's stamp on a lot of dogs. People tend to like to use studs, for example, that are winning and all of that at the moment. But remember, something else created that winning dog. I would love people to use Juan more in Australia, but Juan didn't produce himself. He came from a very good stud dog, that has produced multiple best in show winning dogs. People should be going to use that dog to get, that kind of stamp on their next litter.
Very true. I also keep emphasizing on the need to respect the brood bitch. It is not just the stud dog, but also the bitch that contributes equally. So it's always the combination of both. We talk about the bitch lines and how they contribute so much to the breed and the proteins that come up.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The bitch is, for me, the bitch is the most important part of the whole puzzle, and that's why we tend to, selectively use a bitch or not. To be honest with you, we can finish a lot of bitches that we'll never breed from, and we'll just end up retiring them straight from the ring. As once we've made them up as a champion, a lot we decide not to go on and breed from or to special in any way, and they just end up as retired show dogs, and we let them go as pets. But for me, the key in any kind of breeding program is having those very good foundation bitches, but then finding a good stud dog that's going to complement the bitch's lines. You've got to think genetics.
So yeah, obviously. So now a small question that I would like to ask you. You were talking about India needs to get started with poodles. So if somebody is interested to get started with poodles as a breed of their choice, would you advise him or her to buy a good quality bitch or a good quality dog?
But it depends if they want to go into breeding or not, because there's no point in having a male if you've not got a bitch to breed it with, So at least if you're buying a good brood bitch to start with. That can be the foundation of your line, because you've got that bitch there to then go to somebody and use their stud dog. You know, you pay a stud fee, you have your litter of puppies, and hopefully the two lines that you've put together are going to produce something that then becomes more of a foundation for you, because that's the first line with your specific kennel name on it, you know. So, you know, you keep a nice bitch from that and you run on a dog or two and see what you get, and then you work out from there, I think.
Very sound advice, I would presume. I will again come back to touch base on some more questions on the breeding aspect of it. Before which we will talk about the conformation of the poodle. As we have it is me, myself and Sidhu were saying, we have not seen much of poodles here in the ring. Not a lot many people who have actually seen the dog in person, felt the dog. So what is your take on the unique breed features of a poodle from a conformation standpoint? What sets them apart from the other breeds, other than the grooming?
Well, that's a good question. And what sets them apart? Well, for me, again, it's the. I mean, what's your breed? Is it the German Shepherd? Did you say?
You mean me?
Yeah.
I have English Cockers. Now I have Boxers, and I also have a lone Fox Terrier.
Yeah. Well, if you think about the Fox Terrier going into, I don't know, a best in show ring with a standard poodle, it's not apples for apples. Do you know what I mean? They're so different. And you're looking at a standard poodle and in good condition with a good coat, you know, their attitude, the ring presence, everything about it, you know, it's just the most tremendously, you know, for me, I look at them and when I watched the recent Westminster when the standard poodle Seba went on and won best in show, the hairs on my arms physically stood up because I was watching this amazing dog run around the ring, and it was just knocking spots off everything else that it was coming up against. But it's the whole thing for me. The rear angulation. I love a really nice rear angulation on any dog. I just love it. I love seeing the muscle on a standard poodle that's been. It looks like it's been finely tuned. You know, I hate looking at a standard poodle that just looks very thin and flimsy and there's no muscle mass on the legs or on the rear. You know, I like a good spring of rib. I like a good front. I like I love the heads. I like a long neck. You know, I don't want a poodle to look like an Afghan, but I do love an Afghan as well. I love its neck, and you know, it's just so grand and regal. There's just something about a standard poodle in any kind of ring that just a good one. It just shouts to me, wow, all the time. You know, even in any color, you know, people have a preference on colors, but poodles come in so many wonderful colors, you know. I think my biggest hate at the moment with specifically poodles is the amount of people that are breeding the doodles. You know, they seem to put a poodle with everything these days and charge $5,000 plus for a mongrel. It doesn't make any sense to me at all, and they're just watering down this amazing breed with all these other things. I don't know.
There was a question from one of our viewers. I think Radhakrishnan Swaminathan had asked a question about this doodle aspect of it. This is the question. So he was asked, does it pain you as a breeder to see poodles used to create all these designer hybrids?
Honestly,
so
makes me want to cry. I hate it. These people are just profiteers. They're just people like, you know, they see a huge profit and they're keeping these dogs in very squalid conditions and they're breeding with anything. You know, I was actually speaking to a poodle breeder, Philip Langdon, in the UK a couple of days ago, and we were talking about one of the websites over in the UK. And right now there are people on there with these doodle things that are poodles mixed with Pyrenees, mixed with boxers, and mixed with Bichons, and mixed with all sorts of different things. But they're charging anywhere from £3,500 to £6,000. I don't know what people. I just think people are crazy. Why would you pay that kind of money for a Heinz 52? It doesn't make sense to me at all. What worries me most of all is mixing these different breeds. We know within our own breed the different types of issues we see with genetic issues and other hereditary illnesses. God only knows what we're manufacturing by mixing all of these breeds together, new potential things that are just not even around right now could manifest themselves over the next few years. So it's kind of scary, really, that people are doing what they're doing. And, those people that are doing it, their answer all the time is, well, originally, a poodle was mixed with 20,000 different things, as were all other breeds of dogs. But, you're going back an awful long time, and we've bred out a lot of those issues that we can. And, we've got really good standards, I think, right now. But even, one of the biggest things that we even see over here at the moment in the US are these Merle poodles. And there's no such a thing as a Merle poodle color. They've been mixed with Aussies and all sorts of things. And for some reason, they've got AKC paperwork. It makes no sense. So at some point, somebody's lied on the applications they're making to the AKC to get these dogs registered. So I don't know. It's a little bit scary because I hate the thought of people being ripped off, thinking they're buying a purebred poodle when obviously they're not, because poodles don't come in that kind of color anyway. But also, I think for the breed, we're not doing ourselves any favors by allowing these people to get hold of our stock to breed with whatever they want later on. So I don't know. It depresses me to think about it. I'm so anti-doodles. It's untrue.
I totally agree with you. I think it's a distressing signal world over with most of the breeds mixed up. And with their justification of these dogs being bred together with so many breeds as a part of their origin, they were developed for a purpose. What are the doodles being developed for? I don't think they have an answer for that. So we go to the next question. We are talking about colors. So what are the acceptable colors in poodle breed? We are talking about Merle, which is not an acceptable color. So what are the actual acceptable colors?
Anything apart from a Merle, really, I would say. I love all the colours, and I do feel sorry for these poodles that end up being Merle, but that's not a correct colour. We see a lot now of the party colours, the blacks and the whites, the white and the blacks mixed together. And, that is actually a natural colour for a poodle. That was one of the very first colours before we tried to breed that out and get solid colours. So they are acceptable, but they're not acceptable for AKC and for showing probably most places around the world now. The UKC registration in the US allows that colour, and so they do have confirmation shows for breeders who specifically breed that. But any solid colour is the correct acceptable colour for a poodle. So that's the blacks, the whites, the apricots. Silvers are becoming very popular right now.
Okay, I think there is an add-on question to this, which okay. So this is the add-on question. The question is, despite the other colors, we see that the whites and blacks win the most. Is there a specific reason behind this?
No, there isn't. I mean, there are some good winning. I think right now there's a really nice apricot over here in the US that's being shown by Alan Waterman, and that's a beautiful apricot. And I think that probably should win more than what it is doing. Don't get me wrong, he's winning a lot with it, but it should be winning better. It should be taking groups now because it's a beautiful dog and he handles it so well. But I think it's a choice by the judges. And of course, again, there are so many of the blacks and the whites that it's very difficult to come up with, or to come up against those top winning blacks and whites when you're another colour. You know, they're just not as popular. That's the thing. You know, I love a nice apricot. I used to dislike the silvers with a passion, but I recently ended up with a couple of silver toys in a litter that I was not expecting at all. And now they've become one of my favorite colors. Goes to show, until you add them, you can't really judge them. But I would say that the blacks and the whites win more because there are more of them. And the most popular breeders and handlers tend to be showing and breeding them the most.
So we are talking about judging, we are talking about color preferences and how the apricot should have done better, at least. So we have a related question from a viewer, that is Radhakrishnan Swaminathan asking, there is a theory that Poodle has an unfair advantage over other breeds due to its coat and glamour. Do you think the lazy or convenient judges feel compelled to avoid the highest honors to stay safe? It's a bit of a controversial question, but I think you'll take it.
Oh, that's a very cheeky question, but I love it. Okay, so the easiest answer to that would be yes, but of course I'm going to say no, because I love those types of judges, especially when my dog's in the best in show ring. But like I did say earlier, you can hide a lot of issues under a very well-groomed dog, whether it's a poodle or a Bichon or an Afghan. You know, there are ways that these very talented groomers and handlers can disguise a lot of faults, and you do the best with what you've got. That's the thing. So, you know, some people, especially those with other breeds that don't tend to win against the poodle, will use that exact statement as a you know, rule for life. You know, oh, it's a lazy judge, they know it's easy to do that, but you know, if it's a good judge, you know, it's a good all-rounder, and you know, or a good breed judge, then you know they're going to get their hands on it. I don't like it when they go into best in show and the best in show judge decides that, well, enough people have gone over the dog to get it to this point, I don't need to do that. I like a good judge to be a judge that puts the hands on it, even at that final bit in best in show. Touch the dog, see if it meets your expectations of the breed before you give it best in show. Don't just have them run around because you think everybody else has had their hands on it, and so of course they're fine. Let's have your opinion. No, we pay our entry fee for every show to have our breed judges' opinion, then our group judges' opinion, and then our best in show judges' opinion. That's what we're paying for, and that's what we want. You know, so I think it's important that a good judge goes over the dog. And again, I keep on harping back to Patricia because I know Patricia does that. Every single dog that goes before Patricia, she will give it the time because the owner of that dog took time to pay the entry, make the entry, mail the entry, but spent 4 hours grooming the dog to put it under her. So she wants to give that person, you know, the opportunity to show their dog off. And a good judge should do that. A good judge shouldn't have a dog in and out the ring in 5 minutes. You know, I think we deserve more than that as patrons of the show. We're going for that person's opinion, good or bad, you know, but just give us a fair opinion.
Okay. So now we'll move on. I think Ishwar would have got the answer that we're looking for. So we'll go on to the next question on breeding poodles. So you've been extremely successful in breeding superior quality poodles. You've made over 150 champions, as you said. The last 3 years you've been the most best in show in Canada. What is your breeding ideology? We talk about inbreeding, outcrossing, and line breeding. What is your take on this? We would like to hear your views.
You know, I like to work with other people. I don't think one person gets successful because they hold the cards to the chest. And I've never been like that. Even in my professional life, you know, I work in a very kind of stressful environment, if you'd like. And I work with a lot of challenging companies. And I think if you work hand in hand with other people, you become more successful. And I don't like people who hold their cards too close to the chest, like, no, this is mine and I'm not going to share it. I like people to have knowledge on things. And, I think the more people that are knowledgeable about something, the better things progress, So for me, I like to work with other breeders. I like to work with new people coming into the breed. I like to give people a chance, and I like working with the people that I'm working with right now. And for me, that's the most important thing as a breeder, that we don't become so self-consuming and so, just on our own blinkered path, that we don't take anybody else's experiences into account. And I've been really lucky over the years to work with some amazing people all over the world that have given me access to their lines and their dogs and their mentorship, if you like. There are a lot more people who've been in poodles a lot longer than I have, even now. Even at my grand old age, there are still people who know a hell of a lot more than me, and because of that, I'm really fortunate to be able to draw on that experience when I can. So I think any successful breeder is somebody that listens to other people, that can share the knowledge, and who is willing to take the knowledge and criticism from their, from their colleagues, from their, their betters, if you like. So for me, my kennel has been successful because of the help I've had from so many other people around the world, and I'll be forever grateful for that.
So from what you are saying, I can presume that you do a lot of outcrossings also, depending on how these lines meld and how these dogs can go along with each other from a phenotype angle also. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, I think that's the only way you can be successful, because it gets to a point where every dog in your kennel is related to each other, and you can do a couple of line breedings, and I'm all for that with the right dogs, but I think it's important to recognize the qualities that other dogs bring with them. So you have to look outside of your own stuff, go to other people, appreciate other people's work and other people's dogs. There's a couple of kennels around the world that I would never want to work with because I just don't like their stuff. But there are lots of people around the world with some amazing dogs right now that have really worked hard to get the lines where they are. And I want to work with them if I'm not already working with them now, I'm working out from watching them and seeing what dogs they're bringing out and following their lines of who I'm going to be contacting in the future to use their stud dogs with one or two of the bitches I've got coming. And even if I don't get the opportunity to do that, to buy something in, maybe a bitch or a male from a puppy line that they bred into, so that I can bring that line again into my line. It's just important, I think, to recognize the value of other people's work. There are always good breeders out there that want to work with you. There are some that don't, obviously, and there are some that want to always keep their work very close to them. And I'll tell you something else as well, just for nothing, but I think the sign of a very, very good breeder is to watch the dogs that they sell out of their kennel, not what they keep for themselves, because there are a lot of breeders who will breed very successfully and have amazing dogs, but they're the only ones that ever win with them, because they keep the best dogs for themselves. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right at all. I don't think it's right for you to keep the best dog in a litter, but sell 3 or 4 of them out to other people to show, because you've kept that best one for you. I think it's nice to give other people the accolade of winning with a dog that you've bred. So as a breeder, I want to see other people winning with my dogs that I've bred, that they love and want to spend the money on showing. In America, to have a successful dog that's winning continuously, the cost of doing that for one calendar year can be anywhere from $120,000 to $250,000 for a well-campaigned dog. It's a lot of money, so to be able to commit that kind of time and money or that kind of resource to a dog's campaign, you've got to have a good dog to do it. And as a breeder, if somebody wants to, take a dog on and go all the way with it, I want them to have the best dog. I don't want to sell somebody something or send the dog to another country that's never going to win. There's just no point. I want to send the best representation, not only of the breed, but of my kennel to that person, so that people are saying, oh yeah, that's a Piedmont Poodle, or that's got Piedmont behind it. It's going to be at least half decent if Barrie sent it out. Do you know, I actually put more good quality dogs in pet homes than I do end up putting them in show homes. So I don't know. I forgot your question now. I'm just rambling on. I'm sorry.
Thoroughly enjoying what you are sharing. We started with the breeding of poodles, but you're talking about very insightful things. As you rightly said, it is very important to nurture camaraderie between breeders, see how you can share lines, get to understand and work together as a community. I'm very sure there is one of our audience, Mr. Ishwar, is working towards, and his team are working towards the boxer breed assets. We are trying to bring in that close-knit circle of building that breed here. So that way, I think every breed and every breeder should start working with their respective counterparts to better the breed. And this is something which I have heard what you are talking about in terms of only wanting to send the best. I used to go as a, I'm also old now. I'm talking about 15 years back when there was no Facebook. I used to write emails to the breeders of English cockers. And there are a lot of breeders whom I'm still after, even to this day, who don't want to send me a dog unless they find a gem of a dog to send me. So that is a kind of, like you said, they want to ensure that the kennel's reputation is maintained and they give me something really wonderful to show and breed out of. So these are really gem of thoughts which have been shared very well. I think all Indian audiences and people globally also enjoy listening to all this. You are not stayed away, you are enjoying it thoroughly. So we have a very interesting question from Chetan V. Chalapati, CVC. So he is asking, Barrie, where and what part of the world are Piedmont Poodles being shown at present? Currently, where are the Piedmont Poodles being shown?
Actually, that's a really good question. So right now we have dogs. We just won Best in Show a couple of days ago at a show in Mexico. There's a very successful dog being shown out there right now called Piedmont Papi Chulo. And Papi Chulo is sired by the great dog from Italy, Mate. Samarcanda Italian Lover, who won, I can't even remember how many Best in Shows that dog's won. Those guys in Italy are amongst the top breeders in the world for standard poodles. They just do crazily well. We have dogs based out of Croatia, but because one of my handlers, Valentina, is based in Croatia. That's her home country, and Croatia is a very strong strategic point for me because apart from the fact that the handlers and the groomers are extremely good there, it's a central point in Europe where they can literally go to 20 different countries. Yeah, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. So Valentina's literally showing dogs for me all over Europe right now, from Russia to Macedonia and literally everywhere in Europe we've got dogs.
You just need to name the country. Yeah, she'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again in America and Canada are our main places right now. But I've sent dogs to Cuba, to Australia and New Zealand and all over the place.
Wonderful. So I think CVC got his answer.
But my plan is to send more to India so that we can get the Madras Poodle Club up and running.
We really look forward to it, Barrie. Really, the support was immense. As you said, the sharing knowledge and giving that kind of support is immense. There will be not many aspirants who would want to do great things with the breed, but without the right mentor in place, it's always going to be a challenge. Thanks for the support and the kind words. I am very sure a lot of good aspirants will be reaching out to you for support. So we have one good question from Ms. Jackie Mauro, our next week's speaker. She is going to speak to us about French Bulldogs next week. Her question goes like this: apart from your own dogs, are there any other standard poodles in the world you wish you could have owned and or have bred out of?
Oh my God, there's hundreds. There's
Okay, you can give us top five.
top five. I don't think I can. That's the trouble. And you know me, but we've only been talking for just over an hour, but I've not shut up for 1 second. But I don't know. I would personally say I love the Del Zazo kennels in Spain. They were one of my favorite all-time kennels, and everything that they produced. While I would say Juan and Carlos were together in standard poodles. They were just my favourites. I just loved them. I like the Namkia standard poodles from the UK. The Montravia kennels, they had a beautiful dog who won Crufts, Montravia Tommy Gun. And he was best in show at Crufts. I think it was 85, something like that. And I got my first standard 2 years later after seeing Montravia Tommy Gun. He was just one of my all-time favorites. But there are just so many. The Brazilian lady from the De Meyer kennels, she had the most amazing dogs, Suleika. I never got to meet her, but the handlers I use in the US, Chris and Rachel, were her main handlers in the US. And I saw a lot of the stuff that they showed for her, and I've even used some of her lines in my current lines are from hers in Brazil. So there are just so many, there are so many amazing breeders out there. There are a lot of not so good breeders as well, but there are so many good, breeders out there. And the good news is there are a lot of up and coming new people in our breed that are coming through now that have been here from, 5-6 years, just having their first litters themselves, just getting them out to the shows, and they are looking really, really, really good, and certainly because a lot of them took on some really good mentors, and they've used some really good stud dogs with some of their bitches. So, fingers crossed, there's going to be a lot more that I'd like to wish that I'd owned or bred myself in the coming years.
I think that answers Jackie's question. Move on to the next one. Okay, so you have bred and exhibited some of the top standard poodles. Why a bias to the standard variant? Have you owned or bred miniatures or the toy variants earlier, previously?
I do love all the sizes in poodles, and I do have them all. I have the miniatures and I have the toys. And more recently, I actually just a couple of months ago, I brought in a couple of new foundation stock from Colombia, from Victor over in Colombia. And to be honest with you, I've always found it quite difficult with the toys to get, to breed something worthy of being shown to a high level, and I've just been so lucky this year that, I had a really good breeder who trusted me in Spain, who sent me a fantastic bitch to breed from, one of his breed bitches he sent to me. And Linda Robson, here in the US, I was able to use her stud dog. And that was my very first toy litter in 20 years. And, I've never been a lover of silvers, ended up with two silvers in the litter and one white. So, my very first litter of toys in 20 years, I ended up with the colour I disliked the most in the whole breed, and ended up doing super well with them. Both of them finished super fast as champions here in the US. And we're one of them's going off to the Magic Star Kennels in Paris. Pedro's going off in a couple of weeks, but he just finished his championship here in the US. Linda, I gave Linda one of the silvers because I was like, no, I don't want another silver, Linda, you have it. And she's like, oh my God, I've wanted a really nice silver for ages. And so for her, it was a godsend. And she's just finished that. That's a champion now. So I had these 3 puppies in this litter, and the 3 of them just finished their championships super easy. Got these 2 new ones in from Colombia. I'll get them finished and then hopefully have some nice puppies.
Okay, we seem to have a technical disturbance. Okay, we wait for Barry to join us. I think his frame is frozen. Let me bring him. So in the meanwhile, we'll get Sidhu also on board.
Hi guys, I think Barry is having a little bit of a technical
Technical
difficulty,
snag.
so just hold on. He should be in pretty much soon, I suppose. I think his system froze from what I could see. He just stopped talking.
So
So
we do
it
a
is
small promo for the Madras Kennel Club events to come by. So next week we have Ms. Jackie who would be speaking about French Bulldogs, and the week next to that, uh, not a big suspense, but we still see how we can work it out. We are talking about seeing how we can do a panel discussion of breed and breeders. So looking forward to it, seeing how we can work
okay.
out. We can
To cut you
Sidhu will
short,
take up.
Jay. Yeah, Barry is in. I'll just put him back in there.
Okay, good. So welcome back.
I'm not quite sure what happened there.
So we had an ad break. When you are gone, you were talking about what are the forthcoming sessions that you'll have in Madras Kennel Club's
Oh,
live
perfect.
chat show. So it did work for us. So yeah, you're talking about miniature and toy variants, and you're talking about how you had your toy litter. So I just wanted to add on and ask you another question. There is this always strong opinion that in any breed, to breed a miniature variant is very tough because to get the dog squeezed into a smaller package with the right bite and all the elements put together is a big challenge. Be it a miniature dachshund or be it a miniature poodle. So, what are your views on it?
You know, it is difficult, you're right, to keep them under the measure. And, you know, some countries are more strict than others on actually getting the measure out on the table and measuring them. I don't know what it's like in India, but I know in the UK they have these little rod things that they use as a measure to put over the backs. And so, you know, they can see if the dog's actually undersize or correct size or whatever. But it is so difficult, you know, with those smaller variants to actually get the right correct size. But again, you know, I think a good rule of thumb is like begets like, and we try and breed as close to the breed standard as possible. And sometimes we have to maybe do things that are not recognized around the world. So, for example, in the US, you can actually mate a toy poodle and a miniature poodle together and register those puppies. Whereas in the UK, that would be looked down upon. You wouldn't want to do that. You would only mate a miniature with a miniature and a toy to a toy, you know. But I guess when you're looking at, you know, some lines tend to throw larger miniatures and larger toys than others, but you know, I think you just have to keep on breeding and look for the size variance in stock outside of your own. You know, I think with any type of breeding program, you have to be open to going to other people, because some bitches just throw really big dogs. You need a stud dog that's going to maybe try and help bring the size down. You know, it's known for producing puppies that have got the right type of size. So, you know, just in the same way we would do for looking for a better head or a better front or a better rear, better movement, you know, with every bitch and every litter, you want to try and introduce something that's going to better that bitch's look for you. You know, when I'm looking at a bitch, I look at the size and I look at the head and everything else, the whole conformation of the bitch itself, and then I try and look for a dog that can make up for what I feel is lacking in that bitch. You know, and I think it's the same with size. You've got to look for dogs that help produce a smaller size.
Wonderful. That is wonderful insight again because this is something which has always been nagging my mind about miniatures of any breed. That is, they say it's a big challenge. So thanks for clarifying on that. So we go on to the next one. There is one from our YouTube audience. There is one Mr. Rodolfo Cicero. Don't you think many judges should pay attention on the muscle conformation on poodles and on their movement? Afghan hound-like movements frequently are seen in the ring. What are your views?
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. Yes, they absolutely should. Unfortunately, some breeders are breeding poodles that move like Afghans, and it looks amazingly striking. That's the thing. And an untrained eye would see that type of poodle going in the ring and fall in love with it straight away. Because when you see a poodle moving like an Afghan, it looks incredible. But it's wrong, it's incorrect. That's the thing, so you've got to be able to tell the difference between how a poodle should actually move and how an Afghan should actually move, and you separate them both out. Unfortunately, this kind of U-neck thing with a poodle and its very Afghan movement isn't correct. It looks fantastic. I've got to say that it looks fantastic. It just is incorrect. And in terms of the muscles and the muscles absolutely right. And I mentioned that earlier on. I hate looking at the rear of a standard poodle in continental trim that just doesn't look like it's got any muscle at all. They're not meant to look like that. When you think about a dog, a working dog, when it's out in the fields and everywhere else, you want that dog to be of the best, the best fitness it can be. And those dogs that don't have that proper muscle conformation just looks awful. That was a good question.
Just adding on to this question, so standard poodles are quite a big dog. They are medium-sized dogs. And how do you end up achieving this kind of muscle toning? Do you free run them, or do you have exercise regimes? In Piedmont, what is the usual regime of exercising them and getting that muscle toning and conditioning?
Yeah, it's really difficult because, especially with the COVID, everything's been so restricted, and trying to keep your dogs in tip-top condition. And this whole year and a half has been the strangest year for breeders and for handlers as well. Remember, these handlers make their money going out to dog shows. And for a year and a half, a lot of them around the world haven't been going to any dog shows at all. So it's been a struggle for a lot of people, and for breeders in particular. We had our breeding program in place for the year coming up, and we had the bitches and the dogs all sorted out, who was going where and who was doing what dogs we were mating together. And a lot of breeders ended up with dogs that have not been out for a year and a half, and we've got a backlog of dogs that would have been finished and moved on to new homes or new show handlers around the world by now. So it's been the weirdest year. And exercising has been a huge issue as well. In places where you've not been allowed to leave the house, or everyone's on quarantine in streets for months at a time, it's been very difficult, especially for the standards, to be able to keep them in tip-top condition. A lot of people have been relying on equipment, the dog walkers that you can get now and all of that kind of stuff, and a lot of the top kennels have those anyway, just as an added thing to keep the dogs in shape, especially those specials that they don't want to have out on the road. But to be honest with you, I like a poodle that isn't just there as the special, and it's cooped up in a cage for half of the day and he's out on a treadmill for the rest of the day. I like a special that's actually out running in the fields and rolling in the muck with the chickens and everything else. If you come round to my house, we've got chickens wandering outside the gardens, and the dogs are running around and just having a happy old time. So for me, they need to be exercised properly. And if you can't do it yourself and you don't have people to do it, you need to figure out a way to keep them in good shape. Because I think mentally as well, you can tell the dogs that are in a cage or a pen for most of the day. When you go to any show, poodles have this very specific behavior pattern, and you can always tell the ones that are created for a long period of time during the day, because they tend to, once they're on a lead, run around in a circle, because that's all they're used to doing in their crates or their cages, So, I always tend to look down on those types of handlers and breeders when I'm seeing their dogs constantly running around in a circle. It's just not mentally, that's just must be draining for any animal, let alone a poodle that wants to be with people or doing something continuously. They're used to being very agile, athletic dogs. Even the toys, they need to have their exercise. So for me, it's very important that we give them the exercise that they deserve to have.
It's a very valuable point. I think with all these largely constricted breeds, and with the muscle toning that needs to be put across for the judges to examine. Thank you. And we'll go on to the next one. How do you assess and pick up a show prospect from a litter of hopefuls? And there's another add-on. Till what age do you retain and evaluate your puppies before deciding on a keeper and letting go of the list?
Yeah, they're really good questions as well. Well, any breeder will tell you when they first look at it, it's like putting your finger up in the air and see which way the wind's blowing. You just don't know. The minute they come out and you're looking at them going, oh, please let that be the one, let that be the one. And, I sit so many times looking at different litters of puppies, and I'm still flabbergasted by the end of it that I've gone all the way around in a circle, because I'll start off liking that one, then the next one will come running out and I'm like, oh my God, that one's even nicer, and I love the head, and look at the way it's carrying itself so early. And I just think it's very difficult all around, really. And even when they're 12 weeks old, like I said earlier, it's still very difficult. For me, I think just go with your gut instincts. Go with the one that's standing out the most to you. And if you're lucky enough to have other people around you and you value their opinion, then bring them in and get the opinion. If you have a really nice bitch and you went outside to use a stud dog, ask the stud dog owner what their opinion on the litter is, because it's not, those puppies are not only going to represent your kennel and your litter, it's going to represent the stud dog owner's litter as well. And I've seen so many times when people have used one of my dogs for stud, and I've seen the puppy that they've decided to keep and it's got in the ring, and I think to myself, oh my God, why did you keep that one? That one should be in a pet home. It's not doing either one of us any favors. Finish it and put it in a pet home. But I think those breeders who really want to do well, they will get the opinion of other people. I think the more people who give you the opinion, the better. There are so many good people in every single breed that there's somebody you can get the opinion of. You don't have to like it, and you don't even have to agree with them. They might go the opposite way to you, but it's just another point of view. And it's also a point of view that somebody else might pick up on when your dog's being shown. The way it's carrying its head, the way it's carrying its tail, the way it's moving on the front. Does it look more like an Afghan than a poodle? Does it look more like a hackney carriage kind of pony kind of look than it should do? As glamorous as it looks to you when you're watching them and cute with the other puppies, if it's incorrect, it's incorrect, and a good judge will spot it straight away. So for me, I would say go with your gut instinct all the time, but if you're in a good position and you trust the people around you to give you an honest opinion, get the honest opinion and go to the stud dog owner and ask what their opinion is, because more than likely not, they'll understand their sire's line a lot better than you will, and they'll know what good attributes their dog throws, so they'll be able to help push you in a different way as well, or highlight a different thing, different aspect of a different dog that you hadn't thought about.
The aspect of seeking out the stud dog owner's inputs is quite unique. I have never thought about it. But you accurately said they would have seen multiple litters sired by these dogs, and as you again rightly put across, they might know what are the good things that this dog carries out, and they will be able to give you a good assessment. That makes a lot of sense. I think it adds in value to all the breeders in India too. Yeah. So we'll go to the next one.
Do you know, just before you do, just give me some insight. So in India, is it a closed circuit for dogs? I mean, do people tend to keep to themselves more, or are they free with information? Do you go to other breeders and talk about things? Is it an open society for breeders?
It is again person specific. There are some breeds where there are a lot of collaboration. There are some breeds where people keep to themselves. Uh, that's what I could say, because again, I have a breed. My original breed is a very not a very popular breed, English cockroach as such. There are few breeders, and our collaboration is very limited because we have different preferences in terms of the lines that we have. So, but yes, I can talk about boxers. Boxers, there is a lot of collaboration. There are a lot of good breeders in India, so there is a lot of collaboration. I think German Shepherds are extremely well knit. Again, a very stronghold breed for us in India, German Shepherds, the Dobermans. As I said, it's individual specific, but yes, the community can do a lot more in terms of getting to speak more freely, share more information. That could be better here, is what I personally feel. It's my 2 cents, my humble opinion. I'm not saying that's what is actually happening. That's what I observe as well.
Well, I appreciate your humble opinion.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for sharing.
So we will move on to the next question. If someone wants to get started with poodles as a breed of the choice, I am talking about not only showing but also to breed the breed. So and to show and breed. So what would you be your advice to them?
If someone wants to get into the poodles as their breed of choice, well, first of all, if you're brand new to poodles and you don't know anything about them, I would say get a couple of good books. But there's so much information online right now, and there are some really good resources like Poodle Club of America, and each country has a specific poodle home office, if you like, and they're a good resource because their websites normally give you some really good information. They also list lots of different breeders and things like that as well. But for me, I would say get as much information as you can. The poodles themselves are a very difficult breed anyway, and in terms of looking after their coats and looking after everything else, health-wise, there's a lot of genetic issues with all breeds, but poodles tend to have quite a few. Look for a good bitch. I would say look for a good bitch. Start with a really good bitch as your foundation. Get good advice from multiple breeders, and I would suggest doing your research on the breeders. Are they? Is their philosophy the same as what your aim is? Do you want a dog just to breed? Do you want a dog just as a pet? Do you want a dog to breed, be a pet, but you want to show it as well? What's your aim? And then go to the kennel that has been a little bit successful in what you're looking to achieve, because you want to mix with the right type of people to achieve your goal. That's the key thing. Look for people who are like-minded. There are lots of cliques, there are lots of groups, as there are in any breed. You have your good and your bad, and you have to weed out what's going to fit with your lifestyle better. I would always say start with the breed clubs and work your way out, because there's a lot of information on those websites, but there's a lot of knowledgeable breeders normally associated with those clubs, and they can point you in the right direction too. Remember though, a lot of people are kennel blind, and a lot of people are always going to prefer their own stuff over anybody else's, and you've got to take a lot of it with a pinch of salt. I think my breeding's amazing. I think I've got some of the best dogs in the world, but I'm not kennel blind. I do know that there are better out there, and that's why I use those better dogs within my breeding program, so that I can bring in the qualities that they've been bred for over the last 20 or 30 years with those breeders. So I think it's about appreciating everybody's strengths and weaknesses, but as a breeder new to the breed, you need to get a good mentor. You need to find somebody who's going to let you have something of quality to start with, because the worst thing you can do is get something that's just should have gone to a pet home straight away, because those puppies that go to a pet home are beautiful, but they shouldn't really be bred from, and they certainly shouldn't be shown, because there's a reason for the breeders selling them onto those pet homes, and you have to be able to trust where your dogs have come from, that the pedigree is what is on the paper, because there are some very unscrupulous people out there that are just doing pedigrees of all sorts of things, and you have to be able to trust the people you work with.
Makes a lot of sense. I think on the aspirants of poodle breeds would reach out to the right breeders as such. They would do the research. As you rightly said, most of these breed clubs have a lot of relevant information. When I started with Fox Terriers, I didn't know anything. Then I started digging into the Fox Terrier Club's website. So we are able to get a lot of information. That will make a lot of sense to newcomers. So we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so more of health questions now. So are standard poodles hypoallergenic?
So the word hypoallergenic itself just winds me up. It actually makes my blood boil. So, well, first of all, I'm not quite sure that I understand the word hypoallergenic, because there really isn't a word called hypoallergenic. It's a word that was made up by a marketing department within a very large cosmetic company to help sell some products. And trust me, this is an absolute fact. This is my area of daytime job work. So I work with clinical claims all the time. And although I do know products carry a claim of hypoallergenic, there isn't a real way to substantiate that as a specific claim anyway. And to say a dog is hypoallergenic just doesn't make any sense at all to me. It's supposed to be non-allergic after repeated use of a particular product. That's the scientific meaning behind hypoallergenic. And hypoallergenic would normally be substantiated by a process of time being subjected to a specific thing to see if any reactions were to take place. So I would say no, there's no such, and also the FDA do not recognize the word hypoallergenic. So any products that carry that specific claim in the US, for example, are doing it without any authority from the FDA, because it is just a made up word. But in terms of dogs, and specifically poodles, people claim that, it's a breed that is more tolerable to people who have general issues with other dog breeds. As far as I'm aware, poodles still collect dander and everything else. There are dust, there's dirt, and all sorts of debris in a poodle's coat when you come to wash it or brush it out. The same factors are still all there in any coated breed, in the same way they are with a poodle. What's making them more or less tolerable to those people who have issues with other dog breeds, I just don't know what it is. As a scientist, I can't get my head around it at all, because as a scientist, it makes no sense. It makes no scientific sense to me at all. So I can't answer that question correctly. As far as I'm concerned, there's not even a word like hypoallergenic. It means nothing at all. Scientifically, it doesn't mean anything. It was literally just a word that was made up by cosmetic companies to sell more products to those people who think they have sensitive skin. So, sorry, I can't verbalize it any better than that. I'm so sorry.
I think that is one of the reasons why this whole claim of being hypoallergenic is one of the reasons why poodles are an active ingredient in all the doodles that are being made. Whenever there is a crossbreed, they always add the poodle into it, say it's a doodle, say it is hypoallergenic. As you said, it's a myth that needs to be broken out. I am happy that you have clarified that now with multiple people seeing it. So, thanks for it.
I think it's crazy, because you're right. Those doodle breeders do use it a lot, and I think that's probably one of their biggest selling tools. That it's been mixed with a poodle, so it's hypoallergenic. But even if there was a word of hypoallergenic and it actually had a specific meaning that was scientifically proven, I would suggest that one never knows when you cross a dog of what more DNA the puppy's going to have. If you cross a poodle with a Labrador, is it going to be more lab or more poodle? I just don't know. It doesn't make sense to me scientifically, again, that you could say it's going to be 50-50, because now there are so many more DNA tests around. We can physically see that just isn't the case, So don't believe all the hype. It's hard. It's marketing hype.
So, what are the common health issues which are unique to the breed? And Sid, can I have the next question also? And are there any genetic tests which are used to screen breeding stock from these health breeders' positions in poodles?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear one word of that.
Okay, very sorry. I'll repeat it. I was asking what are the common health issues in the poodle breed, and the next question was: are there any health tests or marker tests, genetic marker tests, which can kind of tag that these lines are clear from these genetic diseases?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like with any breed, there's always issues, isn't there? I mean, genetic tests for everything these days. But I think specifically with poodles, what we found is that we have a marker that we have that we say, right, as a minimum, all of our bitches before breeding are going to have these tests done. And I think most breeders are now at that kind of level where they're trying to certainly screen out the bitches, and if you're requiring a stud service from somebody else, I would personally always ask to see what testing has been done on the sire, just so that we can highlight any specific issues. But I think hip dysplasia was always one of the main things that we wanted to look at. Certainly in the standard poodles, we want to look. Miniatures and toys have their own specific things as well, but we're looking at thyroid evaluation, and I don't know. We look at cardiac exams, and we look at PRA, and all patella, and there's so many different things that we test for these days.
The good thing is that there are a lot of scientific companies which do genetic testing for these, isn't it? So we have a set of genetic tests to do for the cockers, like the PRCD and retinal atrophy and all.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love it. I love now the fact that everybody's more conscious and aware of specific problems. And I love the fact that there are so many genetic tests available, even to the point where we can genetically look at the color that a dog can produce and all of that kind of stuff. So I love all that kind of stuff. But what about in India? Do you tend to do a lot of testing there? Is it a requirement?
Very unfortunately, I don't think there is any testing at all being done in India. We only come up with hip dysplasia examinations recently. There has been a tie-up with the Kennel Club of India and the biggest veterinary college in India. So we are coming up with that. But other than that, genetic marker tests are not available in India. So if I need to test one of my cocker, I would need to send the swab across to Europe or to the US to one of the testing facilities and get it done. So I think there are close to zilch. I don't think anyone is actually testing their breeds at this point in time in India.
That's a shame. It'll come.
It will come up. It will come up. As you rightly said, with all things opening up and breeders worldwide being very conscious about the health aspect of it, I think we will also follow suit. We will also start testing it. We have a question from one of our audience. There is Nihal Narayan, asking, could you throw some light on health issues with poodles, such as Addison's disease? And he's also mentioned NEWS, etc.
Yeah, again, what I would tend to do is direct you to the Poodle Club of America site, because they are very specific, and they are actually sponsoring a lot of studies right now. And I don't want to give anybody any misinformation or anything, but let me steer you to the Poodle Club of America site. I know there's a professor here in Florida at the moment that's running some very interesting studies, and they're requesting anybody with any recent diagnosis to allow them to take biopsies of skin and what have you from their dogs, so that they can study them. And epilepsy is a really big thing with poodles as well, and because of that, there's many studies. Again, the it's the Florida State University are running a huge study at the moment. I think it started in 1996 actually, and they've been gathering as much information on both SA and epilepsy, and they've got some fantastic research at the moment. So if anybody is listening and they've recently had a diagnosis of Addison's or epilepsy, anything like that, if they get in touch with the Florida University, State University, they're running some amazing studies at the moment that they could do with your help.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that insight. Sidhu, can you have the next question? Okay, so this is my pet peeve message. Are poodles involved in any other sporting activity other than the conformation ring?
Oh, poodles are into everything. We have poodles that are doing obedience. They're doing track. They do agility. They love fly ball. They do hunting. Even now, I love seeing the poodles when they're out hunting with their owners, and you see their owners, and they've got like 4 or 5 of these ducks or pheasants, and the dogs are there in some kind of a short trim, and they're covered in mud and all sorts of things because they've been doing all these activities, and that's what they're bred for. Remember, they want to do activity all the time. Even the toys want to try it every now and again. But I think the main activities and sports for poodles are really obedience. They do track now, where they're racing them, and agility. And like I said, fly ball. But they just love it.
And I think with their own predisposition, they should do very well in dog diving also, isn't it? Dog diving is a sport which is catching up. I see boxers doing dog diving, so I'm very sure poodles will excel in dog diving. The next one. So, okay, these are my last 2 questions. Which are your top 5 poodles in all your years with the breed who you feel have influenced the breed very positively? They may not be dogs from the current, they can be from the past. Which are your top 5 which have influenced the breed very positively according to you?
Oh, that's a very good question. The top 5, I think Montravia Tommy Gun was a big influence. He was the dog that won Best in Show at Crufts, and I think after that, standard poodles became very popular in England, definitely, but again, in Europe and around the world, it kind of shone a different light on them. And then I would say the Afterglow kennels in England have produced some amazing dogs over the years, and there's at least 2 or 3 of those that I would put up there with some of the best in terms of sires, that have been used around the world. I would say Piedmont's How About That was quite an influential dog in that he went to Italy to the Samarcanda kennels from England, where he was born and raised. He went to Spain to Carlos Renau, to the Del Zazo kennels, and then he went on to Samarcanda. And I think systematically they bred him to a couple of bitches, and one that was owned between the Del Zazo kennels and the Afterglow kennels, which ended up producing Ricky, which was the dog that won PCA, and I think he went on to win Westminster as well, and Best in Show at Crufts. So I would say he was definitely up there. And every time I look at a different pedigree now, Piedmont's How About That is somewhere in the pedigree, which is I feel really proud of, because that was a dog I bred, and he's in so many people's pedigrees right now. But I would say right now there's a dog called Tarquin Huffish Piedmont's Star Boy, and he won multiple Best in Shows and groups all over the place. But he's produced some of the most amazing offspring, and he is the sire of the dog that won the Sydney Royal and has won countless other dog shows. And he's had so many puppies that have won Best in Show all over the world. So I think he's still around and he's still young. He's like 5 or 6 maybe now, but you know, he's a young dog that's produced the most amazing offspring, and he continues to do so. You know, we're so proud of what he's done. You know, so I would say Tommy Gunn is my all-time favorite. You know, looking back at pictures of him now, he looks very old-fashioned and a bit heavier than what I actually like now. But at the time, he was just a sensational dog. The Del Zarzo kennels, I couldn't even pick one from them, every one of them that they've had. I would say the Huffish kennels in Sweden are amongst the top 5 kennels in the world right now, and they've had some amazing stuff. There's a lady in Canada with the Darwin kennels. She's had consistent winners for the last 10 or 20 years. You know, they've just been incredible. So just to pick one or 5 specific dogs would be impossible.
Thank you, Barry. It was a wonderful session. I am very sure all our viewers enjoyed it thoroughly, and I hope you enjoyed spending time with us and sharing your experience and knowledge about poodles. So, anything that you would like to add on before we end the session?
Well, actually, you know me, I like to ask a question or two, but you know, just recently in the news, we've been seeing things, images coming from India, and I know a lot of people are curious to know how the COVID situation is there and how you're all coping. It's not been looking very good from the news programs that we've seen. How are you all coping? How is everybody?
You see, for a country of our size and the kind of population that we handle, despite the best of intentions, any government will have challenges in terms of implementing vaccination schedules, and that is what we are facing, is what I would feel. I am not pro or anti any government for that matter. I'm just saying that any government will have a challenge because we are an extremely diverse geography with the population split up across various places. Yes, we have our challenges, and we are also having challenges with certain challenges on oxygen supply that have come up, on vaccination distributions have come up. But I think we are hitting a plateau where we are trying to stabilize things out. Right now, as I'm speaking, we are heading into a full lockdown in the Tamil Nadu state, Chennai city as such. So that is how we are trying to control. We are trying to ensure that the second wave is not as bad as it actually is being portrayed. And I would also give it to a bit of media sensation. I'm not saying things are not bad, but when it is any Asian country, the media sensation is extremely high. They say it is extremely bad. They're all dying there. It is not that bad. We are all fighting. We are all strong. We are all staying together. We are all staying at home. We are staying safe. But yes, challenges are there. We are trying to handle with these challenges, and help is coming in terms of, I'm very sure the US is sending us a lot of vaccinations, and we have now got the Sputnik vaccination also coming. So we have a lot of options available. Now we are trying to move in from the age variants also. Now we have, since recent announcement, we will have vaccinations happening for 18 and onwards also. Earlier it was only from 45 and above. Now between the age group of 18 to 45, they are also getting vaccinated. So it's only a question of time before we all get vaccinated. And with these lockdowns and efforts taken by the respective governments, I'm sure we'll be able to contain the epidemic and fare that out of this whole situation.
Good. Well, I'm glad it's actually getting better for you, but I want you to know that the thoughts and the prayers of everybody are with you all. It just, you know, we're all thinking about you, and we're all there with you. We've all been through something very similar over the last year and a half, and you know, I just want this horrible nightmare to end for everybody.
Very rightly said. As we are discussing, it has also got a lot to do with the dog show and the people associated with the dog shows, their livelihoods. So we really wish that this pandemic or the epidemic ends and people all thrive out of it and are safe. So the usual message from, at least that's how this started. We started this online sessions when the whole lockdown happened and the shows got cancelled. We wanted to keep the doggy fraternity engaged in terms of learning more, staying at home, staying safe. So the usual message continues: stay home, stay safe, ensure social distancing. Please wear your masks until you are getting, even after you are getting vaccinated. Please wear your masks.
Yeah.
We are a large country. We have a lot of challenges to handle. So cooperate with the government, and when there is a lockdown, please stay home. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time, Barry. We really thoroughly enjoyed your session on the poodles. We
Good.
look forward to maybe another session, maybe on grooming. We'll again catch up with you, see how we can coordinate that.
Sounds good. Wonderful. Well, have a great evening. Thanks for everything. And thanks everybody who's watching today. Have a wonderful weekend and stay safe.
Thanks, Barry. You have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.